Let's head to Pittsburgh. Let's do this right. Let's talk to the man from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh, Andrew Fillipponi. Andrew, what we're kind of debating this line. That's where we started. Vegas is making Pittsburgh a 7-point favorite. That seems like a little bit much. Is it?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, when you just at first blush that there's something wrong with it, you see a Giants team that's, the last 2 weeks haven't looked good against the Bears and the Browns. I mean, I watched both games. The Giants punted on every possession in the second half against Chicago. And then last week against Cleveland, if not for the McCown fumble that Pierre-Paul picked up and brought back the other way, that's a close game. So even though both teams, you could say, are coming off of games where they played inferior competition with the Steelers beating an Andrew Luck-less Colts on the road, I think, and this is, again, a strange thing to say, I think the Steelers are playing better than a team right now that's riding a 6-game winning streak.
Is Pittsburgh overall, because they may be playing better than the Giants, but they're sitting right now tied atop the AFC North. Some fans may have expected even more out of this team. Do you believe this team is actually underachieving?
Yes. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think what happened before the season started is that, a lot of the national prognosticators and people that make predictions on football for a living glossed over Martavis Bryant's suspension. He was knocked out for the year because of another drug violation. And their defense, which wasn't really that good to begin with, had their slot corner get knocked out for the year with an injury. And Bud Dupree, who was the rookie of the year last year on defense and a first-round pick, was on the IR and just got activated a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they were at the bottom of the league in sacks for the first 9 weeks of play, and then they've come back to life here with games against the Browns and the Colts. So I think, before the season started, realistically, I think you could have looked at the Steelers as an 11-5, 12-4 team. It's going to take running the table to get them to that 11-win mark. They were, after the Patriots, I think the consensus to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC, and I don't think they look like that team right now.
Andrew Fillipponi from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. So, Andrew, let's talk about the fun matchup. OBJ versus Antonio Brown. Like, where do you look in that? Where do you sit on that matchup?
I see Odell Beckham Jr., who, even though he scored touchdowns, a big one against the Browns on the slant where he had a long catch and run. And I know he left that game with a hand injury, but I look at a guy that, hasn't had a 100-yard game since I think like the Ravens game. And I don't think the Steelers, one of their weaknesses as a team is that they don't have anything close to a shutdown or number one corner. But we've seen them this year shift their defense in a way that will give a number one receiver like Beckham extra attention. And I think they'll force this Giants running game, which is pathetic, or Sterling Shepard or Victor Cruz to beat them this weekend. And I don't have the same confidence. And I really like Steve Spagnuolo, and he won a Super Bowl with the Giants as a defensive coordinator. But I think they're going to put Janoris Jenkins one-on-one against Beckham, because that's what they've done this year. They trust Jenkins as a shutdown man. They gave him that money. And every time we've seen Brown go up against a team that just asked one man to do the job, Brown has gotten the better of it. And that was against Washington the first week of the year. And that was on Thursday against the Colts when he scored 3 touchdowns. So at this moment, unless there was an injury or something that changed over the course of the game or in game, to change my opinion, I think right now Brown looks like of the two receivers, I think Brown right now is set up to have a better game.
The talk this week is also, since Eli and Big Ben were in the same draft class, who people would want for their career and maybe even the season right now. Plaxico Burress comes out and says he would take Eli over Big Ben. You have a unique perspective because you host in Pittsburgh, but you also have New York ties. We're talking just 2016 season. Who would you rather have, Eli or Ben Roethlisberger?
Ben. And it's tougher when you're talking about just this year, but I think there are a couple of separators for me with these two guys. The first one is the turnovers. Eli's thrown 10 interceptions again this year. Every year since he's been in the NFL, he's thrown double-digit interceptions. He's led the league in picks 3 times. And I know that that's making a statement about his entire career. But when I watch Eli Manning play, regardless of whether the game's at home or on the road, I think he's good for a careless turnover a game. And with Ben, even though he has a penchant to do that more on the road than at home, he's still somebody that I think week in and week out does a better job of protecting the football. You hit Eli, and I know he's good at getting rid of the ball and avoiding pressure. You hit him, there's a good chance the ball is going to come out. You don't have to worry about that with Ben. And then the other part of it is, I think with Eli, he's in a situation where he doesn't have a running game to count on, and
right.
I've seen Roethlisberger in the same situation before, and I've seen him lift offenses up to an elite level without having a big running back. And I don't see that from Eli this season. They haven't scored 30 points in any of their games. I think it's close between the two quarterbacks. I think it's close for their careers. But right now, I would say Ben Roethlisberger is ahead of Eli.
Andrew Fillipponi from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. Andrew, I got to tell you, our producer today, Brian Mariano, diehard Giants fan, is actually going to drive down to the game. The whole time you're talking, he's just shaking his head. You'd think you were talking about his mother.
Oh, because he's that big of an Eli guy?
Yes.
Well, look, I mean, I would say the 2007 playoff run, the Super Bowl 42, beating the Patriots, is at least for me, like maybe the greatest month of my life. I mean, that's how much fun I had as a Giants fan with beating Dallas, going into Green Bay and ending Favre's Packers career, and then doing the unthinkable and knocking off the Patriots. But the realistic or honest thing to say about Manning is that he's gone 7-9, 6-10, 6-10 the last 3 years.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I know that defense was not good enough last year before they spent all this money, but you can't, as a great quarterback, and I still think he's a Hall of Famer, but that I think is a big blotch on his resume. Man, Ben's never had a losing season, and at the beginning of his career, he had great defenses around him, and that definitely helped. But the last few years, he hasn't, and they still have found a way to at least get to 8-8 every year, and I can't say that of Eli Manning's Giants teams.
Now, Andrew Fillipponi, like myself, Levack, he is a very smart Syracuse University
Here comes the Syracuse
Orange.
kiss up. Here we go.
He is a very educated person. I'm going to ask you about our beloved Orange. Dino Babers finishes up the season. The Orange do not go to a bowl game, but are you in favor of Dino Babers? Are you happy where that program is heading when it comes to the football side of it?
I'm really not, and that's not so much me being judgmental or critical of Babers. It's more or less just a commentary on the state of Syracuse football, which is, we've reached a point here where a coach can have an 8-5 record at Syracuse and he can get an NFL job, which is what happened with Doug Marrone. I'm so defeatist about it. They haven't been ranked in the top 25 since 2001. And I want to believe that Babers has the type of personality, and he's got that big quarterback recruit coming in from New Jersey who's like a 4-star guy to run that offense. But, I think if the first chance he gets after an 8-4 season, he's going to leave for a better, bigger job. And I'm not going to disparage him for that either. It really is just the climate we're in regards to college football. I don't think that, the Northeast is really even the type of geographical area that is going to complement or allow for Babers to feature the kind of offense that he wants. I mean, he wants to do it with speed and skill. I don't think in Syracuse, New York, you get those kinds of players. I mean, maybe you get those kinds of players to go 4-4 in the ACC, but I don't think you get the elite ones that you need to make yourself a conference contender again. So, I've dialed back expectations so much with them where if they go to a bowl game, I'm happy. But I wish I could get back to where I was 15 or 20 years ago where, I was thinking about Big East championships and big bowl games, and I just don't see me, at least right now, ever getting back to that point.
Andrew, remember when I was saying about the producer and when you're talking about Eli? Well, Gaz is sitting here in a Pearl Washington shirt, and you'd think that you were twisting a knife in his stomach while you were
stabbing me, Pony. Come on now, brother.
No, but it's true. It's true. I mean, I don't want to say those things, but it's accurate.
I'm not going to ask you about Bills Raiders. I know you used to work at WGR in Buffalo, but as a Raiders fan, I'm afraid you'll get me next.
Well, you know what? Actually, I'll do this for you. Before the season started, we were doing our outlook on the NFL season, and I said, for a lot of the things I said about the Steelers and not liking them to be a Super Bowl contender, I was on the record as saying I thought that there was a chance Brady started to show his age this year. I mean, there are very few quarterbacks in NFL history that at 39 continued to play at an all-pro level. In fact, maybe only like two. Favre, that one random season in Minnesota where they lost the NFC Championship game, and really that's it. I mean, Montana, Marino, Elway, all those guys were out of football by the time they were 39 years old. So I actually, before the season started, picked the Raiders to win the AFC.
My man.
Wow, come on.
Because I felt like Derek Carr was ready to make that jump. They'd spent so much money on their offensive line. I like their skill position guys. The disappointment for me with the Raiders this year has been their secondary.
Yeah.
I mean, when you spend, you use a first-round pick on the safety from West Virginia who was coming back from a knee injury, but he was supposed to be a turnover creator. You go out and you bring in, you bring in Reggie Nelson, who's another guy in this league. Bring in the corner. I mean, I thought their secondary was going to be a lot better. The fact that I think in total defense, they're 28th. That's going to have to get better if the Raiders are a real Super Bowl contender. I feel good about picking them now that they're 9-2.
Right.
But to be honest with you, they're not good enough defensively for me to look at them as a championship contender, but maybe Aldon Smith will change that if he can get his you-know-what together.
See, just hard truth and honesty from Andrew Fillippino from 93.7. Fillipponi, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was getting so excited about mocking the other guys on the show.
Yeah, that's what
I like while you're like literally they're both looking at me like, what'd you do? Why is he nice to you? Andrew Fillipponi, 93.7, the Fan in Pittsburgh, helping us get this thing together and ruining the days of Closer and Gaz all at once. I love it, man.
Yeah.
Anytime you're free, please come on.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I think the Giants guys are still in a position where I'm not even sure they're going to make the playoffs. And I wish I could say better than that because, like I told you, I grew up with them. They've been my favorite team my entire life. But the way their schedule sets up, I still think like 2 wins in the next, 5 weeks is not a given. And if they win this game, that'll change my perception of them. But until that happens, I think at 8-3, they're kind of a paper champion.
All right, I got to let you go. I think my producer just quit.
All right, guys.
Take care, Pony. See ya.
We appreciate you, brother.
Yep.
He's honest. What do you want?
Hurt. You know how bad that hurt?
I know. That's
First,
done.
He took one swing at Closer.
A good swing
and then
at
he took
Closer.
another swing at our poor Orange. I thought
Right.
we were going to embrace together. I mean,
Right.
Babers is doing a great...
You thought it was Donovan McNabb
And then he
part
comes
2.
out. Not only does he say that he likes the Raiders, but he says he picked them in the preseason to go to the Super Bowl.
He tempered it a little bit. The defense isn't doing what everybody thought it would do.
How could he?